Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to the latest edition of Free Thought Hour. It's a bit different this week because my co-host is turning into a guest. What's going on? Welcome, Tersia.
Well, I don't know if I'm a guest, if this is a hostile takeover or a free for all. We'll have to maybe our future audience can have a vote on it in months and weeks to come. How are you,
Possibly.
John?
I'm okay physically, thank you very much. What's this Kreuzvrei nonsense?
Oh yes. It's my latest venture that I'm involved with, or it's involving me. I'm not quite sure. It's an association that fights for the rights of freedom from religion in South Africa. And we are just starting up. We're hoping to get members to join us so that we can, if needs be, and it needs to be done in certain cases, to litigate the erection of crosses on public land, in public spaces, and the continuous, I want to call it perpetration of evangelism and proselytizing in our public schools, which is a major thing in my the beloved country. And we feel, as non-believers, as humanists, as cross-free people, that it's time to change the world. So that's what we're doing, and we'll see how it goes. We're doing a launch tomorrow of some of our products, which includes songs and almost protest music. One of the people who's very much involved with me is a lady called Jackie Hanke. She's on Spotify as Jax Music, Jax, talented satirist. She wrote us an anthem, and we're planning, hopefully, with somebody who's been a guest and a panelist on our show, Charles Webster, who's also quite the musician.
He's a lovely fellow.
Yes, he's very nice. We want to actually see if we can't at some stage get together and go on stage and do a Kreuzvrei show. So just a little bit of background. In the late 80s, early 90s, when South Africa was still in the throes of apartheid, there was a band of Afrikaner artists who formed sort of a loose movement that they called the Freewill movement, and they had a series of concerts. Now, Freewill in Afrikaans means free bird, literally, but as we love our innuendo in Afrikaans, so Freewill is also a term used to refer to gentlemen who go around like the Scots, who don't wear underpants. So if a man goes around without underpants, then he's Freewill. So, but Freewill also means a bandit who escaped from prison and was on from the police, is also referred to as being Freewill. So it has these multiple and there's a little bit of a play on words with Kreuzvrei.
Yes.
So yeah, we're thinking of reviving the tradition of protest music, but this time against what we feel is the dominance of an oppressive religion in our country. And there you have it, Kreuzvrei. Say it again.
Kreuzvrei. Vrei.
Vrei. It's a
Frei, as in frying.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Well, I got a couple of things to come back at you with. First of all, you know, the Scots, they are often, well, there's one particular Scotsman who was asked, is anything worn under your kilt? And he said, oh, nay, it's all as good as new.
Well, and I don't know if you watch the rugby, but the Scots beat the
Yes.
English.
It was a good match. Yes, up until last few minutes, it looked equal. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. South
so
African.
you're,
Sorry, Duan van der Merwe, who's born. He's a South African, and he scored a
mhm.
hat trick. He was man of the match.
Yeah. Well, the rugby team world doesn't seem to have much national allegiance to it, does it? It's they're from everywhere.
Yeah, it seems a little bit like, yeah, I suppose, yeah,
Mm,
but it was a good
mm.
match, nevertheless.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Mm. So these Nicholas men are also outlaws, according to you, are they? So I'm not sure
Well,
here whether I'm a bit confused because I thought you were in South Africa, not in the convict land of Australia. What's going on?
no, there were convicts in South Africa too, and if they escaped from
Okay.
run the
Okay.
police, then they were, well, actually, maybe fool for it's sort of like you're a bandit and anybody can arrest you, something like that.
Uh-huh.
It's old timey language. We don't have it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So, what is your attitude towards crosses then? Are you there's two sorts of actions you can take. You could campaign to prevent more crosses being erected, or you could campaign to have existing crosses removed. Which of those are you proposing to do?
Well, we're actually proposing a bit of both, depending on each individual cross. So I have nothing against crosses per se, that although it is perplexing to me that an instrument of gross and severe
Mm,
violent torture has become the symbol
mm,
of Christianity.
mm,
And uh, I enjoy the history of symbols and symbolism and symbolism and where they come from. And what's
mm,
really interesting is how the cross is actually much older than Christianity as a symbol.
mm.
It
Yeah.
dates to Babylonian times,
Yeah.
and even using a cross as a method of torture and execution dates to back to the Persians and the
Yeah. Yeah.
Babylonians.
Yeah. Well, of course,
So
Christianity stole a lot of previous stuff, didn't it?
yes, well, steal is a bit of a strong word. I mean, we it's cultural assimilation. Let's call it that. I won't even call it appropriation because it's sort of a
Yeah.
fluid process. But what we want to do, our motto is keep crosses in churches. So as long
Yeah.
as crosses are in churches and they are not used to proselytize and to put up all over the country. You go on a hiking route, on a hiking trail. There's a cross. I
Mm,
took a picture this afternoon of a cross that was actually erected. Where it was stuck. It's about this big, and it was stuck onto a traffic sign. And the
mm.
words Jesus is alive. Now, firstly, that's illegal. Um, one is not supposed to change or adjust or even do graffiti or anything on traffic signs. So and why do that? So the one approach is to assess whether due process was followed in the erection of. I just want to laugh every time I say this phrase, the erection of the cross. But okay, so that's the one. Each individual circumstance will be assessed on its own. The other thing, of course, that we want to propagate is, for example, in Worcester, where I live, uh, at the reservoirs on the golf course, which is a very prominent site.
Mhm,
In full, there's also cross, and
mhm,
I want to apply to have the Kruisvrij logo put up there as well, maybe on
mhm,
either side of the cross. So
mhm,
fairness and equality is also important here. So if somebody who ever had the cross erected, if it wasn't the
mhm,
municipality, if the municipality granted that group or person the right to put up a cross there in that public space on public land,
mhm,
then they allow our organization to put up our cross as well. And if there were a Muslim or a Hindu organization who wanted to put up their religious symbol in a prime spot like that,
mhm,
they should be allowed to do the same. So that's the one approach. And then the other approach is, if the municipality had the cross erected, then that would of course be really not something that should be allowed, because a municipality is an organ of state, and no municipality can claim that they are a Christian municipality, which it would imply if they erected a cross.
Yes, yes, they would be endorsing a single religion. So I assume that the Constitution of South Africa is secular. Then, is that right?
Yes, our constitution is secular, although it's not as explicitly secular as that of, for example, the United States. There is acknowledgement of a supreme creator, a supreme being, and we do not have the strict separation between church and state. So, just to get back to your question about what's my opinion about crosses, they don't make me cross. In fact, I'm quite impartial about crosses. I could appreciate a nicely jeweled cross as why not? Especially if it's pearl encrusted. I
Yes,
would
yes.
like.
Well, here's the thing: if you like a nicely jeweled image of an execution method, would you like to wear a pendant in the form of an electric chair with a few diamonds in it?
Well, depends. It depends what weighs the most. What weighs the most, I suppose. But so I just emphasize, or
Well, a noose, maybe a noose. Yeah, nice noose.
That could be. I could throw. That's quite interesting. Yeah, and I do like macrame as well. So yeah, maybe just an array. Lethal injection.
Yes, yes, yes. What are these bangles called with lots of? Yeah,
Brilliant. We should make one of those.
yeah, with different execution methods all the way around. Yeah.
Brilliant. But I want to say that it's not the cross itself that I have any problem with. It's what it represents. And currently in South Africa, the crosses that are erected all over the place represents the dominance in public spaces of a single religion. And that shouldn't be the case in a state as diverse as ours. So if anyone thinks that we have it for crosses and that we get upset when we see a cross, no, I don't get upset when I see a cross, because I don't need to be reminded that Jesus is alive every 5 seconds of the day. It's not something that I think about. I do find it odd that these crosses are being erected all over the place. It does make me wonder whether there's a little bit of insecurity amongst Christians and the Christian community, that they have to erect these crosses at the entrance and exit of every town, along the highway, on every hill and kopie, to remind of what?
Well, or to convince them that he really is and will come back, and one day they'll meet him in the supermarket.
That's a conversation I would very much like to have with the people who feel the desire to erect these crosses. Funny thing, it's mostly men who have gone on these campaigns to erect the crosses. So I wonder what Freud would have done with this. See women running the organization who wants to take the crosses down, and so far only men who have been erecting. John, shall we talk about something else?
Well, I don't want to leave this religious imagery theme at the moment, because it's going on over here too. But I first want to ask, are you going to be cross protesters? I mean, are you going to be throwing paint over them, or
no, that's
laying down in front of the bulldozers as they try to erect them?
No, I don't. Not at this stage. We wouldn't go that far. What I do or have considered, however, is to press home the distinction between a cross and a crucifix, which we don't have in my language. So
No.
in English, you have the crucifix, which means that there's a cross with Jesus on it.
Yeah.
But in Afrikaans, we don't have a word for a crucifix. A crucifix and just a cross. So I was wondering whether, since they want the crosses, whether we shouldn't sort of, what is a cross without Jesus on it, you know? So,
Just the cross, isn't it? Yes. Yes.
so we might do a campaign of then, you know, getting the whole picture and making, I mean, a crucifix is the complete thing. That is the original.
What it really needs then is for the cross to become representative of something else. I mean, this is what happened to the swastika. The swastika used to be, it didn't used to represent Nazism. It used to represent something. It was some sort of religious orthodox or something. I'm not sure of the history of it. I'm not an expert on that, but I know that the Nazis grabbed it and it became more associated with them than with previously, whatever that was. So what we need is to commandeer the cross to mean something else, so that people forget it ever meant Christianity. So get thinking about that.
If we have enough time, that's one way to go about it. Or at least, for now, we will focus on just fairness and equality, which means that for the cross that remains in public space, there should at least a kruisvrij icon. And we have a lovely little stylized figurine of a human being in the shape of a letter K that looks as if it's sing. It would make a nice little statue. We can hang it sort of. A cross is a very useful tool. I mean, you can hang all sorts of things from it with cross arms and it's a reappropriate.
So go round to all these existing crosses and hang your washing up.
Brilliant idea, you know, or just all sorts of ornaments, or maybe free thought slogans. You can imagine nice paintings. Bird feeders.
You see, if you could make a cross out of negative atoms, you know, anti-protons and anti-electrons,
it will disappear.
So that it's just a shape with an absence inside it. You could go and apply it to all the existing crosses and they would collapse.
I don't know if we're going to be that advanced soon, but I was, you know, all these crosses in game reserves and parks, in public parks, that could be adorned with bird feeders, maybe. That could be a nice touch.
Sure. Hanging baskets with flowers, you know.
That would be lovely. Yes, that's a nice. I actually like that idea. I do like that idea.
So, on the subject of Christian imagery, what do you think of this?
Is it AI generated?
No, it's in Spain. Some artist has produced it, and it's received a lot of criticism from the Christians in Spain because it's been described as the homoerotic Jesus.
Let me just put on my glasses. Let me just see. Let me take a proper look. I don't know. I'm not.
You're not aroused.
Women.
No, I wasn't aroused either. But apparently, some have taken objection to it. Probably the priests, because of course we know about them. Say no more.
The people who were aroused by the image might obviously they have taken offense because it's
Yes. Yes.
it's very well done as a painting.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
No.
So while we're on the subject of religious imagery, what do you think of this?
Oh, that's your hijab.
Not mine. No, that is the strength of the hijab. It's in construction there. You can see that there's an angle grinder being used with sparks coming off with your glasses on, maybe. And,
That's quite clearly.
yeah, and it's in rusty steel and it weighs a ton and it's about 10 foot high or 3 meters if you're metric.
Yeah.
So would you like to have that erected near you on public land? They're proposing to put it up in a community area outside a community hall.
No, it's awful.
In the Midlands.
It's awful.
I agree. And we've paid for it. You need to know that we've paid for it because the organization that commissioned it gets a grant from our taxes. It's not the only. It's not the only source of income, but they do get a grant from us.
The strength of the hijab, I find that deeply ironic because yes, the hijab does have a lot of strength to suppress women.
Exactly.
So I wonder if why would one erect a statue to celebrate?
Well, they see it. They don't see it as suppression. They see it as freeing women to perform their womanly role of, being at home, having babies and cooking. Yes, I know it's difficult to understand.
My silence should be telling because there's just so many things going through.
Yeah. Anyway, before we leave statues, I've had an idea for one. I'm not sure how much you know about this.
If I recall, you've told me that you've been in contact with an artist who's agreed.
A sculptor.
A sculptor. And your idea was I've forgotten.
Let me show you. But I've come up with the alternative, the idea for a statue to represent, to commemorate, to celebrate the fact that we've gone through this threshold and we're now a majority in this country.
Okay,
and
I'm listening.
Yep. Well, I've also got a sculptor who's willing to do it, and he's really good. He's an internationally renowned sculptor.
Oh, you don't say.
The sculpture, it's a human figure, like a puppet, strings going up to a hand coming out of the cloud, God's hand, right? And a pair of scissors coming along to cut the strings.
Okay, and that's made out of stone? How are you going to make that statue make sense?
Bronze.
I recall the puppet on the string. I love that. Yes. Do you have any drawings of it? Any concept drawings or not yet?
Patience. That's the next thing. I spoke to the sculptor a couple of days ago because we're now trying to get to a ballpark cost for it. And also, by the way, I've come up with the name for it. It's called Break Free! Exclamation mark. And
we do have a thing for the word free and vrij and
yeah, there you go. And I'm also trying to get Sir Brian May, lead guitarist of Queen.
Who is all right.
Yes.
I think too.
Because of their song, I Want to Break Free.
Yeah.
And I want him to unveil the statue while that is playing, whether by his band or recorded or whatever. And So we're going to start a Kickstarter fundraiser for this initiative. And the sculptor is producing his early sketches, which we will auction
Wow.
at the forthcoming London event. You remember last year I staged an event in Notting Hill at the Tabernacle. So I'm now starting to organize that. And at these events, we always auction a work of art. And so that will be.
Ooh, wow. That's going to be so cool.
And he's coming along. He's coming along to the event to sign it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So talk about events, John. I have some news as well about an event that is in the very preliminary stages of planning. So in South Africa, we have an organization. It's called the South African Academy for Science, the Sciences and Art. It's similar to, well, yours are much older than ours, but we do have this organization, and they represent the top scientific minds of the South African establishment, and they have a quarterly magazine that they publish 4 times a year. And one of the Facebook or WhatsApp groups, rather, that I'm involved with, several academics are part of this group, and one of them saw the June 2023 edition, and there was a very unpleasant surprise because there were 4 academic articles about intelligent design, claiming but in the top and only academic magazine published in South Africa, 2 academics from my alma mater, Potchefstroom University, wrote academic articles that proposes that there's an intelligent designer, and we are now in the process of trying to arrange an in-person event where I've invited those 2 academics to a discussion, because there's been newspaper articles about it. They've been taken on in the press, and there's a little bit of a debate in the Afrikaans press about it. So I decided that I'm too impatient to write letters and articles to the newspaper. I'm a child of the modern age, I suppose. So I sent them emails and I invited them to a discourse, and they've both accepted in principle that they're willing to do this. But now we have to thrash out the details. And what I would love to do is to actually have an in-person event. That would be the first prize, which obviously will cost some money because they are up in the north of the country, so they will have to be flown down and we'll have to get a venue. But I'm hoping that this will be the first event that Kreuzvrij stages, because I think it's an important topic of discussion, and I know that intelligent design is right up your alley as well. So, but I mean, intelligent design doesn't really have anything to do with evolution as such. I've been doing a bit of reading. It touches upon evolution, but the difference is evolution is a scientific theory, whereas intelligent design is
isn't.
It's a philosophy. And it actually goes down. It actually can be traced back to the teleological argument for God.
Right. Okay.
It's just a
Genesis.
different.
Right back to Genesis. Yeah.
Yes, and William Paley's watchmaker argument.
Yeah.
And intelligent design proponents are trying to make the science and the gaps in the science, which I 100% agree, we do still have many gaps in our understanding, even of DNA and RNA and abiogenesis. For every new discovery, new questions open up, which is how science works.
Questions aren't answered, are they? That's the thing.
Exactly. So what intelligent design tries to do is to take the what we know and fit that to their theological, philosophical model, and then say claim that that is science.
Yeah,
But
it's
I'm
not.
not a scientist, but that's not science works the other way around.
Yes.
Science means that you test your hypothesis, and if the evidence does not support it, then you either wait until you have sufficient evidence, or you go back to the null hypothesis, which is at this stage we don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm planning for Christ's sake.
Yeah. Well, you can fly me out. I'd love to speak at that.
Yes, but you'd have to brush up on your Afrikaans, John, because I do want to do this in Afrikaans. Yes, because in South Africa and the Afrikaners, we almost about on average about 40 years behind the rest of the world in certain respects. So only now is this becoming a real topic of discourse where more people are beginning to say maybe no, whereas just 10 years ago it was almost unheard of for people to say no, I don't think there is a designer, we don't know. So it will definitely be in Afrikaans, and so sorry, we can always try to do an English one as well. I'm sure that could be arranged, and then are you going to fly out? It would be lovely to host you.
Yes, I'd love to come.
Yeah.
Yes. So what about, so far we've been riffing with using our free will to talk about this, that, and the other. So what's your view about free will? Tell me your position.
You know quite well what my position is, but I will state it. I am of the opinion, very much influenced by Robert Sapolsky, that we do not, in fact, have free will. So I am definitely not a determinist. Oh, yes, and maybe I was thinking about...
Hang on. If you think we don't have free will, you are a determinist.
Oh, yeah. I'm not a determinist. So I was thinking about the difference between determinism and predestination. Yes. So people must not conflate the two ideas of determinism and predestination. I don't think there's such a thing as predestination, but I am a determinist. We have no choice in what we do whatsoever at all.
Whoa. Yes, well, I am not of like mind on that subject, I'm afraid.
Where do you fall?
The thing is, what do you actually think free will is? Is it total freedom to do anything you wish, or what is it? What's your definition of free will?
What's yours? Show me yours, and I'll show you.
No. I asked first.
No, that's fine. My definition of free will is that we do not have a choice in how we react and respond and act and live in the world. So it's not about doing what we want to. We don't even know what we want. We rationalize after the fact. We literally do not have a choice, even though it feels like we do.
So, what's the point of a menu?
It doesn't have a point. The fact that there's okay, the fact that there's a menu means that there are certain dishes, and we were predetermined to select one of those dishes on that menu. If there were no menu, we would still have done exactly the same. But the fact that we are in a place where there is a menu doesn't mean that we have a choice.
So you think, so you think whatever you chose off the menu, you were forced to do that, were you?
No, I wasn't forced. The fact that I didn't choose doesn't mean that I was forced. And that's the trouble with free will and using the analogy of a menu. It feels as if we choose, but it isn't as if there is something in the machine that says, shall I do this or shall I do that? Although that's what you experience. What you choose, so let's go with this analogy of a menu. So we have pasta Alfredo or a steak. Okay. So without me being aware of it, me choosing a steak or a vegetarian dish, it's pasta Alfredo, is determined by a host of factors that I'm not consciously aware of. It has to do with what I had 3 days before. It has to do with my blood sugar levels at that moment. It has to do with levels of iron in my body that I'm completely unaware of.
You see, the thing about that is, it sounds to me like a regression argument. You're going back through time and saying this preconditioned you to make that choice. And then if you wanted to question further, you'd say those preconditions were preconditioned by what I had last month and I wanted something different this time. And eventually we get back to your birth.
No.
And it was all determined by your mother's egg.
No, it goes further than that. And that's exactly you're 100% right. And Robert Sapolsky writes that in his book.
Yes. I do know what his argument is. It's about cause and effect. And he's saying that every effect has a cause, and every cause was the result of a previous cause. It's the effect. Each cause is the effect of a previous incident, which had its own cause, and and back you go to Genesis. And that's determinism. And I'm afraid I can't stomach it. My stomach wants the steak.
Okay, so why?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how. But what I suppose is that our brains have managed to construct a mechanism which it's a bit like a random number generator, you know, or a modern artificial intelligent algorithm which wasn't programmed by a human, but the processor learned it. And the humans that are watching the algorithm work don't know how it works. And so that's what happens in silicon, you know. But
isn't that determinism? Because it's programmed.
Yes, but it's a program to freely program, if you see what I mean. It's.
But how can a program be free to program?
Well, I'm not proposing to have the solution to that question, but what I'm suggesting is that our brains have got a good version, even better than the existing self-programming algorithms that enable us to select by a flippy floppy type of mechanism. I mean, if you want to call the flippy floppy type of mechanism determinism, because it's, you know, it's actual charges, patterns of electrical charges on the surface of the brain. If you want to call that determinism because it's made of matter, then you've won. But
choice.
I think that what the brain has done and what computer processors are getting to do now is work out how to escape from the confines of inevitable cause and effect and come up with novel ideas, novel choices to options, because after all, we invent, we create. How could we do that if it was all predetermined?
No, but creation, to create something new is not the same as not effecting a choice. So the fact that even the fact that we create is determined by a set of circumstances with billions, trillions of variables that manage or predict or determine the outcome of what will be created.
Well,
And
why then? Why then weren't aeroplanes created 1,000 years ago? I mean, we had ideas about them, but we couldn't actually do them. But
because it was determined that airplanes could only be created
yeah,
circumstances.
yeah. I'd love to see some evidence for that, really. Because
I think it's quite easy. It's taken. It wasn't possible to the synapses in the brains of the people who invented the first flying craft perfectly coincided with the materials that were available to them at that time, and none of that was a choice that anybody made. It was just that is just there's a randomness in the no, this is going to sound. Let me begin again. The circumstances were determined at that moment in time to be such that that brain who worked in that way, those two siblings, the Wright brothers, were able to put that thing together at that time because of everything that happened beforehand in terms of material development, in terms of scientific development, in terms of people's ideas, was determined to come together at that time to have this result. It couldn't have happened at any other time.
yeah, you see, once you start. Hello, Michael. By the way, thanks for joining us.
Yes, very nice.
Once you start using could have, you're into the conditional there, and it seems to me to be futile speculation. I mean, you're talking about the Wright brothers. It's 100 years ago, almost to the day, wasn't it? And the thing about could have, when you apply it to the past, which is a past tense, it's unalterable. The past is gone. It's fixed in stone. And so it's an irrelevant question what we could have done back then, because there's no way it could be changed. So you trying to use that as evidence for something other than history, seems to me to be a bit of a stretch.
Okay, so give evidence for free will.
Well, I think that we all recognize that we can make choices in life, but we can only do it now. We can't choose what happened previously, but we are on the front edge of a moving conveyor belt of time. And sometimes the conveyor belt goes two different ways, and we can decide which one to hop on. And we do that every day.
I don't think we can. We cannot decide. There's one conveyor belt, and we're all on that conveyor belt. And the one that you are on and the one that I'm on, it goes. And the one that I'm on was determined by like I said, a billion things that happened in the seconds, hours, days, weeks, minutes, years, eons before that I have absolutely no control over.
Well, but listen, this morning I took one of my daughters to athletics in an area behind Brighton, and on the way home, we came up against a tailback for a junction, and we said, "Let's go the other way," and we did. That was us choosing.
It wasn't.
It, it
Felt like
wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't God deciding to put a
no,
tailback in front of us so that we had no option, and it wasn't. It wasn't us being pushed to go left instead of right.
no.
And
I
I really
think
don't see. I really don't see how historic cause and effect, going back to Genesis, can determine how we drive home.
okay. Number one, it doesn't go back to Genesis. Number two, it's not as if there's an external entity that determines. Maybe that's where the disconnect comes in. I think, and I think there's enough evidence for it, that the determinism is managed by all those millions of things that happen that we have no control over. And that's why I'm saying we don't have a choice, because choice to me implies that we have a measure of control.
Yeah.
And I think that's an illusion, because even the fact
So,
that
so, so, for example, if I do this, that's an illusion, or did I
no,
control?
what happens is not an illusion. What happens, that's not an illusion. But you're doing it. Thank you, Michael. What's your opinion? Do we have free will or not?
You
I
can,
think
if you're in front of a camera and a microphone, Michael, you could join us.
yeah, that would be nice. I think the trouble that we have with the idea of
A
not
phone will
having,
do. A phone will do, Michael.
yeah,
Do you want me to send you the link?
that's so nice. We didn't think we were going to have a guest, and we have a guest.
Well, and not only that, but I'm using my free will to send him the link, and he might. And he's coming. He said yes. He's going to join us. Great.
Brilliant, brilliant. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to shut up. In fact, you are going to use my free will that I don't have.
Mike, hello, welcome. Give us some vocal. Can we hear your audio?
Can you hear me?
Yep. Yeah, we can. Yep. Good. Right. Well, I'm going to leave you for a few minutes because I need to get another beer. This is empty. So I'm going to leave you talking to Tersia. Okay. Because I think you know Tersia better than I know you. Is that right?
No, I don't.
No?
Mike, not from a bar of soap.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I think Mike is a vet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hi.
we had a conversation. You
Yeah. Yeah.
was a guest. Yeah,
That's
you were a
right.
guest.
It's that Mike. Yes.
Right.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna get myself another beer. You chat away.
Okay.
I'm using my free will to get another beer.
No, you're not.
It is an interesting discussion. I've heard it many times from different viewpoints. And actually, here you go. I actually agree with both of you. You'll love this. So, free will is largely used as a concept by religion to say, oh, you have responsibilities and you made that choice. So, you have a cause and consequence of doing that. And so we are definitely a part of all that's gone before. That's true. But what I do in the moment, which is what John's saying, although we're still effectively what we've gone before, still we have options. So I have this problem sometimes. I think of something that is basically not right. Like, say someone nearly clips you on the road and you feel like getting out of your car and punching them in the face. Well, we're not going to do that. But that thought still shows up. Now, is that thought predetermined from anger or yelling at the husband or wife earlier? So there are all these possibilities that blend in. So I think, like I said, it sounds like both are right, which is a very odd stance to take.
So, so what you're saying, it seems, I've only just come back, so I may be wrong. It seems what you're saying is there's a sort of foundation of determinism, but then there's a frothy bit of free will on top of it. Is that right?
Yeah, that sounds about an accurate description.
Sounds like a fear to me.
Can we call that compatibilism?
I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is, and I've heard both theists and atheists have this discussion on whether it's optional. Free will is largely, I mean, hugely a stance that the religionists take, because like I said, they want to have a cause and effect on your personages, your choices. So
yeah.
If you made a left instead of a right, it's all your fault.
Yeah. They always want responsibility to belong to an individual. In fact, without that, Christianity fails, really, because it's all about sin. And if you can't be sinful by free will, then there's no point to Christ having died for our sins.
The whole religion is flawed, but we already know that.
Yeah.
Well, but then, of course, in the tradition that there's another person with us. Okay, Mithras revisited. Free will is to get out of the concept of evil. They can blame humans instead of their man clouds.
There you go. Yeah.
I don't know about that. I disagree, because I grew up in a denomination. The Calvinists believe in predestination, which means that God determines whether. So this is a very strange idea, and it sounds a bit like what Mike is saying, because the Calvinists believe that you, as a human being, you are so sinful and so deprived, total depravity, that you cannot love God. So it's impossible. You cannot choose to love God because of total depravity. But before he created the world, God elected certain souls and decided to give those souls the ability to love him. And if you love God, you only do so because he chose to give you the ability to love him. And that is their way of, it's completely illogical, I know, John, but that was how I was raised. So
it's very much against what's his name's razor.
Occam's razor.
That's him. Yeah, Occam actually is a village just up the road. That's where he came from. So it's obviously unnecessary layers of complicatedness trying to get round the problems that they perceive their doctrine is flawed by.
Well, it obviously presumes to be in the beginning that there is a God.
Yes.
And so that, again, even at that, so according to what you just said, Calvinism are saying at least some of us are predetermined to be that way, to love God. I think that's a tough road to hoe because, like yourself, I don't know. We didn't talk much about John's background, but I know Tersia and myself, we both come from a religion background, and if it was predetermined that we should stay there, then we would still be there. We looked at the evidence. We said that can't be right for different reasons, but we both chose, theoretically, we both said this cannot be right. So that religion is gone to me. And then
Yeah.
right. Go
Well,
ahead,
do you want to know my situation?
please.
Because I have a different history. Because I exercised my free will before I was born when I chose my parents not to be religious.
My parents are Catholic, and they have actually told me that we chose our parents. And I don't know how they got that out of Catholicism, but they also did a lot of the woo-woo stuff of Edgar Casey and crap like that. So some of that blended in with some of my upbringing. Oh yeah, we chose our parents, and we actually chose whether we're just going to come and go. So yeah.
I'm reading with so people will know that I have.
That's a good point, Mithras. Thanks for joining in with us. You have a strong point there. One mythology is imperceptibly the same, or not no different from another legend, is it?
Absolutely. But I just want to get back to this whole thing about free will, and I want to separate it from religion. I don't think that at its core it's a concept that is attached to any religion. I think it's one of the deepest problems that as conscious beings we have, because we actually have this ability, some of us, some don't. Some people really don't have the ability to
That's
reflect on.
that's an interesting point, because there's plenty of examples of animals exhibiting free will, choosing to do specific things. I could show you reams of videos that show a cat, for example, opening a door to escape from a room. Now, that can't possibly have been predetermined back in Genesis day.
No, I think it can be predetermined. The fact that the cat had the experience of learning how doors work. So the fact that we don't have free will doesn't mean that we can't change and that we can't learn. I think that's a misconception. And the fact that we don't have free, I think the reason it's such a visceral response in many people when you say we don't know is implies that anything that we achieve was just basically the luck of the genetic and the historical and the geographical draw. And that's not a very comfortable idea. And people also think that our lack of free will means that actions don't have consequences. Because that's a conclusion I've, in discussions with family members. My mom, for example, she'd say something like, but does that mean you can just go about and do whatever you want to because you say, I don't have free will, so I had no choice in doing it?
Yeah.
And then you can just go around murdering people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
no, that is
Yes.
definitely not the case, because we operate on different levels. We operate on the level of the individual, of a society, and of a larger society. And the point about not having free will is when my car breaks down and the brakes on my car fail, I don't blame the car for brake failing, but that car is taken off the road. It is never put back on the road again if it cannot be repaired. And I think it's the same with people. And we need to.
If it's the same, if it's the same with people, then nobody is responsible for anything, and we should let everybody out of jail because it wasn't them. It was all determined.
That's exactly what I'm not saying. The fact that one is responsible doesn't mean that the consequences are not being managed by society. So let's somebody who, let's take a pedophile. I honestly do not think that they are broken. In terms of how we should exist in the world, somebody who has this desire to rape children is doing harm, and people who have that deficiency should be managed in some way so that they don't harm other people.
Even though it's not their fault.
Even though, yes, literally, even though it's not their fault. So
Jim,
I'm not saying what they're
are you-
doing is acceptable or right. I'm just saying they can't help themselves.
Mm. You know how strict I am on the timing, don't you?
Yes, I do. It's not your free will. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, I've been determined to stop this show after an hour, and it's because I determined to call it Free Thought Hour.
Well, again, there's no. The problem with psychology is the brain is such a mess to begin with. But I think that a person, even if a person has a predisposition to be whatever, I don't want to make anything inaccurate, but if they have predisposition towards like what you said, then I don't think the concept there would be predetermination with that issue. They would go ahead and do it. The concept of free will in that situation is they have that predisposition. They know they have that predisposition, but they don't do it. So that would make it a choice, not a predetermination. You see what I'm saying?
I'm just trying to relate this to my current situation, my current family situation. Tersia knows about it. Anyway, guys, it's gone. The hour has gone. Thank you very much. You've been wonderful. And thank you, everyone who's joined in or will watch it in future. Next week, we have another guest, and we haven't quite pinned down who because we've got some others in the calendar, but I don't think we've fixed on next week's one, have we?
We actually have. It's been
Have we?
determined.
All right. Okay. Oh, say it again. Say it again. Is it? Say the name.
It's my friend Rian Wilman from Australia.
That's been determined, as Tersia says. Join us next week to watch that.
Always fun. Thank you.
Great. It was, wasn't it? Yeah. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.